Welcome to the Macdownunder Podcast for all Australian Apple computer enthusiasts and collectors.
Hello and welcome to episode 52 of the Macdownunder Podcast. I'm Justin and thanks for joining me today. Sorry I missed last week. It's getting a bit busy around here, so I might miss a few weeks here and there. But thank you for the comments and for tuning in again. Now, it's been just over a year since Matt and I originally spoke about importing and shipping Apple computer products. And recently, I've been importing a few things and something just this last couple of days, and it's brought to my attention some significant changes that have happened in importing. So I thought it was timely to do an update about that today. We'll also cover regular collecting news, coming events, and for sale items. So on to today's episode. As many of you know, I've been importing Apple collectibles since the 1990s, when eBay was just a local startup in California and when the email list servers were the early form of social media. Most of the things that I've in fact got on the top shelf were imported. So let's start over here. The original Apple II from the US, the Platinum 2E from the UK, the Apple III from the US. The lease is currently on the workbench. The Mac actually is local. That's the Mac 128E is local, but the Mac TV came from the US and so did the TAM. And there's a couple of the compacts behind me as well that originally came from Europe. So there's a lot of things just here that I've imported over the years, largely from the USA and UK, as you heard, but more recently from Europe. I imported some mice and keyboards for those episodes we did last year, and more recently from Japan as well. Now, initially, the US Postal Service had C-mail or surface mail, and it was really cheap. It did take a few months for things to arrive, but it meant you could get large things like the leases and the Apple IIIs relatively cheaply from the US or elsewhere. In the USPS, it's US of course, but here to Australia. But then that was dropped and we were left pretty much to the more expensive commercial carriers. And so all along this period, we had to also deal not only with the costs and the delays, but also the potential for damage, either because the original person that packaged it didn't know that they really needed to do a good job and add, inches of good padding around the object, or it just got kicked and dumped in shipping. Sadly, I've seen that in my driveway on our security cameras, so I know it happens. And sometimes it's just the brittle plastics and it doesn't matter what you do. I'll put in a photo of an old photo of my PowerBook 550C that came from Japan, virtually with no padding, and you can see what happened to the poor thing. I'm still looking out for spare parts to repair it. However, from the same service, when I requested more recently for additional padding, the PowerMac 4400 that you might remember from the last episode I had here on the desk, it had just arrived then. It came with amazing packaging, and I think I can find a photo that I'll put up there as well. So while shipping costs have steadily increased, as many would know, with the recent increase in fuel prices due to the various conflicts, there's also been a follow-on effect and a surge in shipping costs. So I thought I'd do a little comparison because I've imported some things recently. So in November 2025, not that long ago, only last year, but in November last year, a single disk drive from the US cost about $20 US to ship here, and that was through eBay International. Today, eBay International is quoting anywhere between $30 and $75. The average is around $40. So that's a double in the space of 9 months. I've had a look at similar devices through my carrier. And so if I was to import using my carrier from the US, that's $57 US, 80 Australian dollars. If I was to bring it from the UK, it'd be £65, which is $123. If I imported from Europe, it'd be €73 or 120 Australian dollars, so about the same as the UK. And if I imported it from Japan, interestingly, it would be 6,000 yen, which is only 52 Australian dollars. So actually the cheapest place to ship from just at the moment. So you can imagine why I'm importing a fair bit from Japan. However, as I mentioned in the last episode, earlier this year, there seems to have been some changes in the restrictions for exporting open circuit boards, like the ones I've got here on the desk. It's a bit hit and miss, I think, depending pretty much who the agent is that's checking the object as it goes through customs. But I've had an open circuit board in the last couple of months come through fine. It was wrapped in aluminium foil, so maybe that made the difference. I don't know. I mean, it's electrically grounded if you do that, I suppose. But I had a ComSlot 2 card that got rejected because it was exposed. And it didn't matter what I said. It came in actually with the Power Mac 4400. So I said, plug it into the computer, then it's all one piece. They wouldn't do that for me. So I had to find an alternative Japan address. Fortunately, I have a shipping agent in Japan, so I got it sent there and they managed to forward it on to me without any problems. But it is getting tricky. And in fact, there was a really cheap object in Japan, a computer. It was, well, I might as well tell you about it. It was a Power Mac 8115, only released in Japan. It was a variation of the 8100. And I wasn't allowed to bid on it because they couldn't export it to Australia. But only weeks earlier, I managed to get a Power Mac 4400 from the same service. So, as I said, very hit and miss. All right. Now, you may have heard that on July 30 this year, so just a month ago, the US passed legislation which restricted the exports of valuable minerals. Now, what's that got to do with technology? Well, unfortunately, the unintended, maybe intentional, don't know, the consequence is that old technology is being picked up because of the rare minerals that are in the circuit boards and the CRTs and so forth. And so they're being confiscated at export customs within the US and being directed to recycling as e-waste, or so the story goes. Now, I see that one user on the Australian Vintage Computers forum on Facebook had a CRT that was seized and redirected. Now, the details are a bit mixed in this particular case, but nevertheless, that's how it was reported. And I'm also aware of a CB radio enthusiast that had their Motorola branded base station radio complete unit redirected as e-waste in the US as well. And there's also an article on an online gaming forum that's describing the same process. I'll put links to all of these things down in the description so you can have a read. So it looks like it's getting risky to have computers sent out from the US and potentially from Japan. Not so Europe yet, but who knows what's coming. Now, having said all of that, I did manage to import these 4 objects in front of me since the 30th of July. In fact, they all came in mid-August. So I might as well talk to them because they're objects of interest, and of course they're open circuit boards and could easily be considered e-waste under the new legislation, it would appear. So the first one here is actually something we talked about in the original networking episode, and it's the original communications card, the serial communications card for the Apple II from 1978. The next one is the printer serial interface. Sometimes it's called the high-speed serial interface because it's faster than the communications board, but it was specifically from printers, but also from later in 1978. I didn't have these in my collection, and they're extremely rare to find in Australia, so the US is a good source. This one's an LC processor direct slot Ethernet card with the 10 base T connection. Really common in their day, but really hard to find at the moment. So I had the AA UI version, and I was keen to get at least an example of the 10 base T version. If you happen to see the 10 base 2 version, the thin net version with coax, let me know because I'm looking for one of those. And the last object I didn't even know existed until we did the Apple Talk networking episode earlier this year. But this is a Style Writer Apple Talk interface adapter. So that plugs into your Style Writer, I think it's the 2400 and the 2500 series, into the serial port. It clips onto the back of the printer and it provides you with an Apple Talk, or in this case local talk because it's a little bit older, a local talk connection to your network, so you can print to your Style Writer printer via the network. Didn't know it existed, one came up and I just had to add it to the collection. Now all of these I've uploaded to the Macdownunder website too. If you remember last episode I talked about that. Again, I might put the QR code up, so if you're interested in having a look at the website, please go and take a look. And these are actually listed in the blog post associated with the website. Anyway, these all arrived from the US since the legislation, but in my case, they didn't come via the eBay international shipping. They actually went to my shipping agent, were consolidated and sent out in a single package. So far, I've been really lucky that my shipping agent, which I've got agencies in a lot of the continents, it's the same agent that I use, seems to have a really good policy around forwarding electronic components and knowing what they are, that they're not e-waste in this case, they're actually a useful commodity. So hopefully that continues working for me. So it does look like importing is becoming even more challenging than before. So is it worth it? Well, it's certainly becoming more expensive, but also a bit risky for the products. So I've just paid £98, which is 230 Australian dollars, to get 2 Apple II disk drives to me from the UK. Now, that sounds pretty expensive for 2 Apple II disk drives that potentially I could have walked down the street even and purchased. However, these are particularly special Apple II disk drives, and when they arrive, I'll talk about them in a future episode, so it will make sense. However, that got me thinking about this whole cost of importing from overseas. Now, imagine if you were importing something from the US. Imagine if you were the lucky winner of one of those ventless Apple IIs or the really early serial number Apple II that was on auction recently, only to have it stopped at customs and potentially shredded for e-waste. That would be terrible. And hopefully that isn't going to happen, but who knows just at the moment. So, do you import anything for your Apple collection? Have you had any recent experiences that you're happy to share? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know down in the comments. Right, and now on to recent news. So the RR auctions that we spoke about a few episodes ago have now completed. And I guess the 3 highlights for me was the original Lisa, which we now call the Lisa 1, sold for just over $89,000 US. So that's an amazing sale, which I'm watching with interest. The next one was the ventless Apple II. So this was the really, really early series that we spoke about a couple of episodes ago. So the ventless Apple II sold for $37,500 US. And then there was the early Apple II with an early serial number that I was actually interested in. I was watching it for a while, but it sold for just over $4,500 US. Now these all include the buyer's premium, but they don't include shipping. So can you just imagine if you spent $89,000 American, so close to what, 160,000 Australian dollars, and it got held up at customs and shredded as e-waste? I'd be totally devastated. So there you go, auctions. Next up, user Tim over on the Lisa group on Facebook and a whole lot of other places has released some new Lisa operating system software. So there's quite a bit of this coming through at the moment, which is fantastic. So this one is Atkinson Point, which is a Lisa slideshow. that's native to the Lisa operating system. So plenty of new things coming out for the Lisa, which is fantastic to see. And next up, user Antoine on the Apple II GS enthusiast group at Facebook, announcing some new SCSI drivers for GS OS for the Apple II GS that allows you to use the Blue SCSI Wi-Fi as a network device. So check out the page on GitHub. Coming events. Now, Technology Markets haven't updated their site yet, so link in the description. Keep watching to see their next market. WasFest have their next meeting on the 26th of September in New South Wales, hosted in a private home, but I believe also available online. Check with the organisers, link in the description. A new event that I found just recently, so the Radical Computing Exhibition is going to start on the 19th of September at the National Communications Museum, which is here in Victoria in Hawthorn, in a refurbished 1939 telephone exchange. They're open Wednesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. until 5 p.m, not starting until the 19th of September, link in the description. The Mac Museum have got their next open day on Saturday the 12th of September from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Don't forget to check out the website for a membership or for pricing. And as I mentioned last time, the museum's got a whole lot of things on offer for fundraising, including some Blue SCSI boards that we just spoke about. There's a fantastic driver for the Apple II GS just released, so there you go. The Mac Museum's down in Somerville. Check the link in the description. The Adelaide Retro Computing Group have their next meeting on Friday the 11th of September, 5:30 until 10:30 in the Unley Community Centre in South Australia. And the Retro Gaming Bendigo Group have their next get-together on Saturday the 5th of September, for a 12:30 start at the Huntley Memorial Hall near Bendigo, Victoria. And if you have a retro computing event, particularly something involving Apple computers, please reach out and let me know. I'd be happy to include it in our list. On to this week's for sale section. And just trolling through eBay, a couple of things caught my attention. First up, 2 Apple IIe disk drives. Though these look to be the 5.25 inch drives, so the newer ones in platinum. These two are unknown condition, but they're probably working for $100 for the pair. Currently on auction in New South Wales. The same user also has an Apple IIe. Now, unknown condition, hasn't been turned on for a while, but possibly a good buy. Currently on auction for $199, again in New South Wales. Next up, we have an entire original Newton message pad collection. It's got the battery charger, the Newton itself, a whole lot of cases, and the modem. Now, this is currently buy it now for $290 thereabouts. And this is in, close to me, in Victoria. And last up, we've got a Apple Macintosh LC475. This one's available in New South Wales for on auction for $317. Now, it does start up, but the hard drive fails. So maybe you buy a Blue SCSI off the Mac Museum and get this one up and running. $317 on auction in New South Wales. Well, that brings us to the end of episode 52 of the Macdownunder Podcast and my thoughts about importing Apple collectibles from overseas into Australia just at the moment. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Until I see you again, take care. Thank you for joining the Macdownunder Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.